So look, that's brought us nicely into this this chat, and thank you for coming down.
No worries.
So you're an ex-bootneck, you're an amputee, you've got a story to tell, but let's just focus for a minute on what you're just talking about there, because you hold multiple records: indoor row machine and a ski erg machine.
Yeah.
You've lost count, and these are all age category ones.
Yeah.
And what's your driving force that makes you go onto that and go, I want a world record. I'm not just here to make up the numbers or do some fizz.
I first got into rowing by walking into a gym, and it was packed. I thought, what can I use? And as I looked around the room, it was tucked in the corner. No one was using it. And as I stood around and waited for something to become available, I was like, that's my machine. And I got on it. I had a go. And every time I went back to the gym, that would be the thing I'd always start with, because it was empty. And if I could move off, and I eventually just got to the point where that's all I would focus on. I would just go onto that machine. It hurt. It was difficult. And that's why I kept going. Because in my head, people don't do this because it hurts, and they don't do this because it's difficult. And I was like, I'm going to see how far I can push this.
This is before losing your leg?
Yeah.
How does your times compare?
I was always going for long distance. So I was on ship, and I would do like 10K, or I'd do an hour early in the morning before anybody else would get up. And I would then just sort of try to beat those times, those distances. And then it went on to, I saw, it was a slight sort of a challenge. It was a day off. I know you don't get many then when you're in ship. And was in port, nothing to do. And I thought, I'm going to go on the row machine. I'm going to see if I can do the 30-miler. Had no idea, didn't look at records, didn't know all of their different times and distances. I just thought, I'm going to do a 30-miler today, because Royal Marines do a 30-miler. And when I finished it, one of the lads came over and said, looking at the data, he said, I've just looked online. And if that was a marathon, you'd be up there right at the top, sort of in the top 10. But you went further. So I was like, okay, let's do a marathon. So I got up the next day, even earlier, and I went in. This was after doing 30 miles. Literally, I'd had lunch and the odd tea in the evening, and then I'd sort of gone back to sleep. Got up early, and I decided, now I'm going to do a marathon. And I'd done a marathon, and I remember I was only a couple of minutes off the top, sort of what they had as the top time for that year. And I was like, right, I reckon I could beat that. In the mess that evening, talked to some of the lads who were like, have you got any idea how close you are? And one of the lads said, I bet you can't beat it. And I saw that as, I'll do that the next day. So 3 days in a row now, I'd done a 30-miler, I'd done a marathon, and then I went in there. And on that third day, I passed out. I remember seeing, I was at like a 20-something K, and there was a mirror in front of me. And as I'm rowing, I remember staring into the mirror, sort of releasing the handle, staring at it. And then I'd start rowing again, and I was just like going blank, and I was thinking, like, what's going on? And I started rowing again, and I just thought, what the hell? And I sort of gave myself a slap and thought, like, come on, you've got this. I sort of really went for it. And I remember my legs were still attached on the machine, and I was hanging off it, and lads were picking me up going, you need to get off this. I absolutely sort of passed out. They said I was, fitting away on the floor. That was me. And I was a medic on ship at the time. And the doc was like, you are not allowed in the gym. Barred me from being in the gym, because obviously he sees me all day long. He was like, you're with me.
There's a poster or a meme that says, have you seen it? If I pass out, please note my time.
Yeah.
That's perfect. So when you joined the Corps, were you a fizz monster, or was this something you grew into?
I was always into fitness.
Yeah.
I joined when I was 17.
Yeah.
Older brother who had many problems in and out of prison, and he was always fit. He was always big, because he would be in a prison, in a gym. Whenever I saw him, he'd be like, right, let's go for a run. Well, let's go to the gym. So for me, it was kind of like, I want to be as strong and as fit as my big brother. So for me, it was kind of like, let's train hard. I decided I was going to join the Marines, and even in training, I was going for the bottom field record. It was within reach. That was sort of from my PTI. It was like, you're going to do this. And we all were busy because I didn't. And it was like, it was just always there. As cocky as it sounds, at 17-year-old, I went through recruit training as and saw it as a massive challenge. And that's all it was. When I watched your podcast the other day, everything you were saying about recruit training, that was kind of like, that's just like me. I joined up 98, and I joined up in 98 when a mate of mine said, do you know where the careers office was or is? So I was like, I know where it is. I'll show you. Had no idea, never heard of the Royal Marines before. Never heard of them at all, living in Newcastle. And I took him in there. I think he was a sergeant major. I remember he was a Marine and he had a leather band around his wrist. So thinking now, it's like probably a sergeant major. He sat us down, watched this Navy video, and all the way I kept nudging Lee saying, I could do that. And it was the Navy at the start. And then there was guys jumping out of helicopters, storming buildings and sort of jumping on and off ships. And I kept nudging him going, I could do that. That looks easy. And at the end of it, Sergeant Major, who was behind us, leaned over, tapped me on the back and went, how old are you? I was like, 17. He was like, get your mummy to sign here. And if you get your mummy to sign here, you could join the Marines. That's what they are. And my mate then, with a massive nudge back to me, went, you join them. I'm going to join the Navy. And I went, what? So went home that evening with paperwork, filled in up to the point of I couldn't sign it. I needed parent signature. And I knew my mum would never. I was my mum's little boy. So it was the case where I went, Dad? And he went, yeah, I would. And I went, Mum? She went, no. So I pestered her all that week and she finally signed it. I didn't want Dad because he would. It was like, right, Mum, you need to sign it. You both need to be on board. And 4 weeks later, I joined at Lympstone.
Quick turnarounds.
Yeah, it was literally sort of, when I say 4 weeks, 4 weeks I was on my PRMC and then 4 weeks after that, Lympstone. It was like, I remember everything you do through Lympstone, they're beasting the hell out of you. And they'll start to say, anybody who doesn't want to be here, you can all leave. There was like 60 of us or something like that when we started. And I remember them saying, by the end of today, we want 30 recruits in our troop. And we was put in stress positions on like you sat on the motorbike and you're leaning against your locker or you sort of the invisible chair. The locker's shaking everywhere as you're doing it. And it's like, what the hell? And I remember just looking around the room thinking, well, I'm not giving in.
Yeah.
And everyone I looked at, I just thought, this is for you to give in. And when finally some people did give in, I think there was still about 40 odd of us. It was like, right, get all your stuff together. Went out through, got beasted on a run. And all the way through training, I just kept looking, thinking, I can do this. And that's when I got to the point where it was less mental battle and fieldcraft, and there was a lot of fitness to it. And I just thought, not only can I do this, I'm going to push as hard as I can. And I didn't find it easy, but everything was achievable.
Yeah.
And I think it's just the way they build you up. You start and everything's just a massive shock to the system. And towards the end of it, it was just like, right, I can do this. When I come to the bottom field and, doing the assault courses and, the Tarzan, I just enjoyed it. I thought, this is great.
May I ask, similar in this, like everything in that they threw at us in the Corps or in Royal Marine training, I just, in my head, I was like, I can do this. Whether it was like staying up late, getting messed around, whether it was the fizz, whatever, hated it, but I enjoyed the fizz. I didn't like the fuck around factor. I probably watched on that other podcast that you said. But I just went, I can do that. I'll do that. I can do that. And just clawed my way to the end. And all of a sudden it was like, all right, we're in now. Now what? It was an anticlimax at the time. I remember I spoke to a lot of people about proudest moment of their life. And they talk about Green Beret. Of course, I'm proud of it. And I'm more proud of it now than I was at the time. But I was just like, okay, well, what's next? I'm mega cash, just like, because it was never this big dream. I just winged it. I just turned up and went, yeah, come on then. Let's go and do this.
That's it. I mean, I think it was like halfway through when it goes from, you get messed around a lot, and then it's kind of like, now we're going to go into the tactical stage, and you're not going to get inspected every time, sort of in the field. And it just suddenly felt like, this isn't a challenge anymore. This is a career. Yeah. And it was kind of like, oh, this is my job. Yeah. This is what I get paid for. This isn't just a challenge anymore. And that's when I then sort of started to try and look towards the future of, what do I want to do?
That's strong out because there's no young at that point.
I had no idea.
And what did that look like for you?
I just thought, well, if you don't know what you want to do, stay GD. And back then you could. I mean, there was GD corporals and sergeants, so it was kind of like just stay GD until you find something. And every now and then you're given a heavy gun and it's like, right, you're the machine gunner. Well,
I was 05, 06 when I went through or passed out. So it was at a time where you might get a year if you're lucky. And then if you don't pick something, you'll get pinged. So I went SIGs. I went, right, I'm going to jump before I get pushed. What did you do? GD for how long?
I did GD until 2005, and that's when I went medic.
Right. Of course, you said. Yeah.
And that all came from, I'd come back from Iraq, and while I was in Iraq, I had no medical experience. The locals managed to get their hands on an armoured vehicle full of RPGs. When I say locals, I mean kids, really. They were playing with them. So where we were, there was a hospital and there was a school. And I say what was because when we turned up, there was an armoured vehicle with some RPGs in it. There was a hospital that was falling down and a school that was sort of still on fire. And there was people and bits everywhere. And it's like, we drove in and one of the guys slammed his brakes on, looking around for what's blown up sort of thing. And it was later on when we worked out the kids have been playing with these things thinking they were toys. And they'd caused all of this destruction. And it was like, wow. So trying to do some first aid when you've never been taught how to do it. And I was just a young lad myself. By that time I was 18 and I might have been slightly older, but yeah, I was there thinking like, how do I do this? And you try and you do your best. And I come back from that and I thought, I need some medical training. And that's when, yes, you do a little bit of first aid in the unit. But I then looked into, well, there's a medical branch, and it had just turned from, you could only be a medic in the Navy beforehand. And they just started to allow Marines to do it. So I was like, right, I'll do that course then. And because I think I was maybe a year after they'd started this, what they'd seen as a project, letting a Marine on a Navy medic course, and they let a couple in on the first one. That didn't go down well because obviously, like you probably know, every night lads going out, it didn't just get all roily. And yeah, when I went on there, it was like you're the only bootneck on the course. Everybody else, then you become course leader and you're sort of marching them around. It's like whoa, I'm just a recruit here as well. Yeah, it was a bit bizarre. It was because it started off as tri-service. See, when you go in that, you're there with the Army, Navy and Air Force, and they're wanting to do room inspections. I remember looking at this, it was one of the sergeants who was one of the training team. I put my keys in my pocket for the lock, and the lock was closed. And when he came in the room, it was like, your locker's not open. I went, if you can get the keys out of my pocket, you can open the locker. Simple as that. He went, you can't talk to me like that. I took one step towards him and went, I'm bigger than you. And he walked out the room and that was it. I never had my locker inspected again. The other guys in the room did. And I was just, it's not on. I'm not a recruit.
Yeah.
By that time I was, I don't know, 6-7 years into it. It's like, I'm not here to be fucked about.
Mate, when I transferred to the Navy, there was 4 of us on our PT course, so only 8 people, 4 of us bootnecks. And once we passed the course, or like a week to go, we had to go down to the careers office. And I think we signed off and signed back on again. Because I remember when we signed off, it was like, obviously to sign off in the military is a year, isn't it? But you're chitting for a year.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we were like, we're civvies now. We were like, should we just do one? And we're messing around doing that. And leading up to that, people had said to us, people winding us up, and I don't know how serious it was getting, lads, you're going to have to go and do basic training at Raleigh. Yeah. And one of the lads was like, I think he was an acting sergeant, might have been a sergeant. He'd just be blown up in Afghan and he'd come back, found himself on a PT course in the Navy. So we're all quite experienced lads, flapping our tits off that we're going to have to go to Raleigh and do like a 6, 7, 8 week course down there. And I'm like, I just can't, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'll leave. It never happened. We signed off, signed back on again, and off we went. So fast forward, mate, let's get to the end of your career. Because I only know this from secondhand bits from speaking to Mark, that's a friend and as a patient. And I told him the other day you were coming on actually. What led to you being involved in Hasler and the aftermath of that?
So my injury, obviously that's a reason why I got into Hasler Company. I was out in Norway. We'd come back from the Afghan tour in 2006-07, so that would have been Herrick 5. And I was still at 42 Commando. Same sort of deployment was coming up afterwards, but for some reason we went out to Norway in between. Great training for going back into the desert. So when we went out to Norway, in my head, I'd never done a Norway before. Every unit I'd gone to beforehand, as soon as I joined them, they'd just done in Norway beforehand. I'd missed them. So I was like, right, let's just do this. Went out there in December, come back for Christmas. Went out there in January as a sort of the advance party to set up the med centre. There was only a few of us there, so while it was like rain and instant freeze on the ground, but the med centre was at the top of a hill, and it was a great big concrete hill that went down, and then there was 8 steps, and the step had like a scaffolding bar as a banister. So set up the med centre for the day. It was lunchtime, so I went down where the galley was, bottom of the hill, and as I'm starting to walk on it, being sheet out, like literally as soon as it rained, it would freeze. And I started to build up some speed as I'm sliding down this hill, thinking all I can see is like these concrete steps and a banister rail, which is like a big, thick sort of scaffolding bar. So I stuck my arm out, thinking I'm going to get my arm around. Oh, I'm flying off these steps. And what happened? They'd been gritted, just the steps, nothing else. Left foot, well, I must have been sliding that way. Left foot stayed on the top step. And with all the momentum, I just kept twisting. A foot stayed on the floor, and it fractured, spiraling up the leg in 3 different places, like really long sort of breaks in the leg. It dislocated at the ankle, and as I sort of screamed out, flying around in a circle, held the leg, and I remember I went to lift the leg up in the air, had an Alico sort of a mountaineering boot on with great ankle support, and the whole thing just dropped like a limp wrist, and it was like, oh. So from that instant crack and crunch that I felt, I then screeched out from the pain. But as soon as I finished, the leg went all hot. In my mind, I'm thinking, right, that's bleeding. Now it's numb. There's no pain at all. And that's what was concerning, because I was able to move the leg in all different crunchy directions. No pain.
Is this you KO'd on the floor at the moment?
Yeah, this is me on the floor in the snow and ice. And lads come out their accommodation, seeing myself and one of the other medics laying on the floor and thinking it was just some sort of exercise, stepping over us, going off for lunch, the odd kick here and there, get her. And it wasn't until a few had noticed that what was going on, and Smiler, the other lad, was flapping, that they went and got assistance. Fast forward from that, I was taken off to Hammerfest Hospital, 3 hours in a battlefield ambulance with chains on the wheels so we could get through the snow and ice. Surgery there and then to pin and plate it and put it back into place. And I was due to fly off a few days later because of the bad weather. It took me 2 weeks until I could fly out of Norway.
No way.
Just the weather was horrendous. And I had a few complications where I got taken to the airport. Obviously, I've got my day sack on my back, and I've got all my personal belongings, passport, that sort of thing, wallet, everything I need, and a bit of luggage. The lads have been as helpful as they could. I had these crutches that I had one spike on, so you're like stabbing them into the ice and then crutching along. And I'm trying to crutch along to get into the airport. I'd never seen crutches like this before, but it was like...
Hang on. So you've just done that to your leg?
Yeah.
And you've got your day sack on and all your kit?
I've got my day sack. So the other lads have got my kit. And this is where we're being super helpful. They were like, let us get your kit. We'll put it in the airport. You make your way in. So I'm stabbing these crutches in, trying to get across. And then someone says, get your day sack off. Let me take that. And I didn't realise he put it in the vehicle. I then got all the way across, sat in the airport waiting there. There was the nurse from Birmingham who was going to take me back. And by the time they call us forward for a flight wage passport sort of thing, it's like, oh, to my day sack on the vehicle that's now gone 3 hours back towards the camp. No mobile phone or anything like that. So it's like, I can't contact them. It's like, what do I do? So I think it was later that evening. This was the morning flight I was going to be on. Later that evening, I got picked up and taken off to an army camp who they've apparently had that vehicle, had my day sack, had my passport. The next day, taken back to where I was previously in the med centre for 2 weeks. And it took me another couple of days until I could fly out. It was a horrendous ordeal, but I got back out. Got out and got back to the UK. They always take you to Selly Hospital.
Yeah.
Don't think that's used anymore for the military, but that's where you get repatriated.
I went there. I got flew back from Portugal with an ankle injury. Yeah. I'm not quite as severe as that.
Selly Hospital.
Yeah. In Birmingham, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I spent like 2 nights out there, and then you get shipped out. So that was you back in the UK.
Yeah, and for me, in my mind, 6 weeks later, I was going to be fixed. Bone would have been sort of starting to calcify. Everything should be fine. I'll start doing rehab. I was imagining that in a few months' time, I'll be fit and well and, back fighting fit. No, what happened was on the dislocation where your shin and your foot, so where you've got your foot and your dorsiflexion and plantar to your foot, it goes slightly underneath your shin, sort of rocking back and forth. Well, as it dislocated, it ground, and on the top of the talar dome, that grew a little bit extra to compensate. And where it ground the shin, that grew a little bit extra to compensate. Now I had impingement syndrome, so I couldn't move my foot. So every time I tried to, I'd feel a grind, and that grind would cause more scar tissue, more sort of extra bone growth. And it got to the point where I was feeling fractures because every time I'd walk, I'd feel a crunch and a grind, and it was breaking. So they went in through keyhole surgery, took all that bone out, sort of that was growing extra. Told me it would take at least a year to grow back if it was going to be grown back. 6 weeks later, I was having an assessment, and they were like, "Oh, it's already grown back." Probably another 6 weeks after that, oh, it's starting to impinge again. So it was. By the time we get booked in, it was like every 6 months. I was having another operation to try and cut out more bone. I think by the 4th operation, Celio came in, the doctor at Celio came in with my notes upside down. Can't see it now, but I've got a scar down my arm.
Can't see it.
Getting grown hairs in there. So as I'm waiting in the waiting area, I was picking away at something, coming with my notes upside down and went, "Reference your arm." And I was like, "Leg." Reference your arm. I've had a cast on at the time, sort of from the last surgery. And it was like, "Leg." It's like, oh my goodness. And I was like, "Do you want to read my notes and just go back out?" And that's why when you said Celio, it's like, yeah, Celio.
How long were you there for at Celio?
I was back and forwards there.
Oh, okay. You weren't staying there as a patient?
No, I was just back and forwards there. Because they start your care until that's ended, you always have to, even though I was at 42 Commando, I'd have to go all the way up to Birmingham to see that specialist. But yeah, he kind of looked in and went, "This is the end of your career. You're never going to run again, possibly never walk without sticks again." Because I was using crutches, and they were like, "That's you, find a new career." Closed notes, walked out, curtain sort of, and see you later. And I just went, "What? This twisted sock ankle injuries, this isn't the end of my, career." And being a medic, I went back down to 42 Commando, and I got in touch with Derriford, and then I got in touch with Wing Commander Trimble, who was the ankle specialist there, and was like, "I want to see the specialist in the area."
I've seen him.
And I was like, "I want to see you." So I got booked in with him, and he was like, "I can definitely do something there. Let's, have another try. Let's see, we'll go in, I'll have a proper look at it. We'll see about cutting some more out." He said, "I'll be aggressive and we'll cut more out than usual and see if that stops it growing back so much." It didn't. It grew back again. Fast forward, instead of saying each operation, but I had 11 operations to try and fix this ankle.
Wow.
The 10th one was, let's give this a try. There's a knee operation where there's a braided wire that goes through and will pull your tib and fib together. Everything will be sort of held in alignment, and then you'll have all the right room to move. And it was all this trial from what they do for a knee operation. And are you interested in this attempt? I was like, "Yeah, give it a go." I was like happy for them to try anything. I was in constant pain.
What's the timescale? Where are we at the moment?
This is probably 5 years into it.
So what are you doing in those 5 years?
5 years. I am working in the med centre because I can still be employed. I was an acting corporal. I couldn't do my juniors because you can't do juniors on crutches. The Navy didn't understand that. Every time I had to turn down promotion, I was like, "I'm on crutches. I'm downgraded."
For 5 years?
Yeah.
On crutches?
I could walk around if it was flat.
Yeah.
Indoors, I could take small steps. But as soon as you go anywhere in the real world, everything's uneven. And because I couldn't move the ankle properly, because it would break, I had to use crutches, walkers. So I'd literally walk everywhere with these crutches, as if I sort of had spider arms sort of thing, sort of just walking with them rather than crutching, just to stop myself from being sort of uneven. But yeah, as soon as I was in the house, I'd put them up somewhere and I'd just take little steps everywhere.
And you got kids, right?
Yeah.
How does that affect you?
For me, it was awful because they want you to play football. They want you to take them to the park. There's all these things that you want to do. A massive achievement for me was sports day, the dad's race or the parents' race. They always call for, because there'll normally be like, the whole crowd will be mums and there'll be like 2 or 3 dads. And I managed to, get myself there most of the time, but it would be to watch the kids. And when they said, oh, we need some dads for the parents' race, I can't run. Oh, come on, do it. I can't run. Just give it a go. Because obviously you sat down, let's see you on the grass sort of thing. How twitchy I can't run. Oh, sorry. And a couple of times there was a lot of pressure put on. Even my youngest would come over, please, Dad, no, run, just give it a go. And I wouldn't. So it was like, I'm not going to make a fool of myself, and it would hurt. So when I had the amputation, and the very next sports day, it was the last one of his primary school, because once they leave primary school, you never see them at school again. I got sort of called forward, going to do the dad's race. I was like, bloody right, I'm doing the dad's race. We all stood there as if it was a professional race sort of thing, and they're ready to press the klaxon. And I was there. I'd never ran before. I'd literally just been given a blade, hadn't even been taught how to use it. And I was like, I am going for this. It was only about 60 meters of a football field. And I thought, right, let's go for this. And as the klaxon went off, I unleashed everything I could, went for it. And I saw the guy beside me. He just fell over, and I thought, I've won. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, I came second last. Everybody else had gone, and sort of then there was me, and he trundled in behind. But in my mind, I have won now because I didn't lose the race, and it was only because he fell. But every now and then it comes up as a memory on Facebook, and I always share it again, going, "That's the day."
Yeah,
that's the day I did the parents' race. And it was like, yes,
cool, man. That's huge.
Yeah, there was lots of pressures where, the kids always want you to do things. And family life gets really hard when you're constantly in pain. And I know lots of people say, being a medic, it'll be, where do you hurt? Oh, everywhere. No one hurts everywhere. Oh, how's your pain? 10 out of 10. It's not.
Yeah.
You give childbirth, it's like, it's not 10 out of 10. So when I say I was in pain all the time, every waking moment I was awake, I could feel the fracture. But what that made difficult, I couldn't sleep, because if I tried to sleep, I'd lay there, and it was like a drip and tap effect. I'd be laying there trying to sleep, and it would start again. And I'd lay and try and get some, and I just think I went in, and I anticipate in a few minutes' time, and I get this electric bolt of sort of pain. So my way of coping with that was that I can only sleep when I'm either completely smacked off my head on meds. By that time, I was on morphine, so it was literally sort of off my tits on drugs, or alcohol. So I would, I'm not taking my meds. I'm going to have a large cup or large glass of whiskey, and just, you get that hot, warm, fuzzy feeling. Just go, maybe it's time for bed now. Got told off by the doc, because you shouldn't be really mixing your meds. I was like, I'm not mixing the meds. I'm using alcohol, which it was designed for, pain relief. But I went from that to the only way I could get any proper sleep was just go to bed when you're knackered. So stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning, get up at 6, go off to work, come back, 2 o'clock in the morning, go to bed, because I'd literally hit the pillow and I'm asleep because I was exhausted. But what that meant, I was in rehab at the time. I turned up for rehab. I was absolutely exhausted because I only had like 4 hours sleep. And then when I went in there, it was a case of everything ached from being exhausted and not rested enough from, say, the day before's rehab. Your muscles aren't getting the chance to recover, and I would just hurt, and everything would ache, and it would be painful to do anything because of the ankle. So I'd go in there, and it got to the point where this endless cycle of every day is the same. And I remember sitting on the mats, and Mark, who you know as well, he saw me there. And I just remember like bursting into tears, thinking like, what is going on in my life? It's like, shit. And I remember just thinking, this is, there is no lower. And it was at that point of my life when I was thinking, where'd you go from here? And I think the only thing that kept me alive was the kids, because, all you can think of is I'm in constant pain. 6 to 8 weeks, and I'll get an appointment, and they'll say, oh, you've got more surgery. And then that happened exactly the same. the last operation before the amputation that I had was to fuse the ankle. I battled against this one, and it was about a year of every 6 weeks I'd have an appointment to see the specialist, and I got not having it fused. I'd done all my research, and I was like, nobody ever gets on well and becomes active again. And this was my goal. I wanted to be active. And I was like, by this time I'd put on so much weight. I think I was 17.5 stone. Beforehand I was like 13, 14 stone. So because I'd only able to walk around and not do much fitness, I was thinking I really need to get active again. I felt like I was a fit person trapped inside this fat body. And it was like, this isn't me. I'd look in the mirror and it's like, well, this isn't me. It's like, I'm not this fat person. So my goal was, I need to get fit again. I need to get active. So fix my ankle, do something with it to allow me to be active. And when they said, we're going to fuse your ankle, I was like, no, you're fucking not. I was like, I've done enough research into that to think that's the end then. I was like, cut it off. And they were like, no, because if we cut it off, there's no going back. Well, if you fuse it, how are you going back from that? And they were like, it was like, but it's very, you can't just decide on that. So I was going through mental health, and at that point, everything wound me up. Because it's like I'd been tapped all day long with this pain, and it's like the littlest of things would just make me explode. I was an angry person all the time.
Mark said to me last week when I saw him, actually, I said you were coming on, he said, I've never seen somebody, and bear in mind Mark's worked with a lot of patients. He went, I've never seen someone so angry that he just looked at you and was just like, shit.
I just had hell inside me, and it was just like, by this point, my career was over. So I used to look at people, and didn't matter what rank they were, it's like, you can fuck off. And it was just like, I remember the really stupid thing that my branch sponsor did. So the head of the medics branch, he decided in his infinite wisdom, I don't like him, so I don't mind saying on this, he was going to start a Facebook group for past and present medics, and he was going to put it out there. Ask me any question, guys. Anything you like. If there's anything I can help with, or anything that you're not happy with or anything like that. And I literally unleashed everything on him from all of this. Every year you put me up for promotion. There's 2 spaces, and everyone resents me because when they see on the signal that I'm not able to do it, and they know fine well I'm not able to do it, one person goes up for promotion. So it would be like 1 boot neck and maybe 12 Navy medics. So everyone's going, you're slowing our branch down. But I couldn't do anything about that, because every time I pointed out to him, he said, well, why can't you do your junior command course? Because I'm on bloody cripple sticks. It's like, I can't do them on these. And as much as I used to say, like, transfer me to the Navy, and if you think I can do it in the Navy, we'll go that way. Leave it with me. Well, from that first time when I said that, and he said, leave it with me, a year had passed. And when I next saw him, he was like, oh, yeah, I can get you in. Just let me. So because of all this bullshit he was spinning each time, nothing ever come of it. And apparently nothing had ever been looked into to see if I could transfer. So, yeah, I unleashed everything on him and said how much of a cunt he was and how much I hated him. And next time I see you, you best watch your back. But because it was a Facebook group, somebody else, other bootnecks, jumped on there as well. Never mind, next time I see you, you best watch your back because I'm coming for you now, sort of thing. There was all this coming on. And he put on there, if this carries on, I'll have you in my office 9 o'clock in the morning. I went, fine. Let me know your office and I'll turn up and, I'll be there. So he said, well, I know where you are. You're at Hasler Company. 9 o'clock in the morning, I want you in your Sergeant Major's office. So I got in there early and said to Jim, Sergeant Major, and I was like, my branch sponsor's coming in, warrant officer, he's not very happy. Explained what I'd done. He was like, oh, fuck's sake. He said, anyway, shouldn't have set up the group, but let me just calm things down. And then realised when he turned up that a warrant officer in the Navy outranks a warrant officer in the Marines because he's a W01. Yeah. And it was like he turned up and went, what the hell? And looked. Well, they had a little bit of a chat. I went in afterwards, folded arms sort of things. Like it was like you can stand to attention. Like, I don't fucking care what you just get on with it. Sort of like hurry up and say your piece. And it was like, you do realise we could take your pension off you. And this is the line he went for. He said, if you might feel like you've got nothing to lose, but you do realise if we kick you out, we could take your pension off you. And I went, try it. And then I left the room thinking, I really do want to hit him. And in my head, there was nothing in the world that could stop me. And I was thinking, nothing could stop me. When he leaves that room, I'm going to bang him out. And I don't know why I didn't, because when he left the room, I was then called him. It was like a door open, he left. Jim said, Ray, come in. And I remember walking past him thinking, I didn't hit him. But yeah, sliding doors moment, I could have unleashed everything on him at that point.
But that's where you're at. That's where you're at that time.
Everything wound me up, and I must have been awful. I mean, I know it was awful to live around the kids and missus. It was just a lot of people who I rehabbed with after I'd had the amputation, and they saw me. They were like, "Whoa, you're smiling." And it was like, "I've never seen you happy," because you've been like rehab for 3 or 4 years for people, and I was like, "Well, I was," and it was like, "Yeah, I've never seen you happy."
What was the
You're a changed person.
Yeah, of course. But let's go back before that still. You've decided you want to have your leg chopped off.
Yeah.
They're fighting against it. How does that eventually come around?
I went through enough mental health appointments to let them decide that I was doing this out of sound mind.
Are you researching this yourself? Are you searching something, or are you just going, nope, chop it off?
No, I was, because being a medic, seeing some of the lads coming back from Afghanistan on things, I go boom. And then a year to a year and a half later, running around and being as fit as ever before. And sending them off for different rehabs at Headley Court and seeing how well people are doing and thinking, why am I now like 5, going on 6 years into it, and seeing these guys doing amazing, but I've got this crap ankle that doesn't work. Let's get rid. And I decided this in that last year, and yeah, I was doing as much. The way they said to me, I needed to write a whole pros and cons of why I want to have the leg taken off and why I prefer to have the amputation. And not only did I do a pros and cons, I mean, I went that far in detail. I did pros and cons if I have it off while in service, pros and cons if I have it off after I've left, after the fusion doesn't work, and then I end up doing it in Civvy Street without the whole Headley Court sort of back in and sort of the team behind. So I put all of this into them and went off to see mental health, which used to wind me up a lot. Did you ever go up to mental health at HMS Drake?
Yeah.
So upstairs,
yeah.
So guy on crutches, going upstairs, you've got to go through 2 sets of heavy doors. As you open one set of doors, you then sort of right onto the next one. So as you let go of that one, you're kind of trapped in between. I'm on crutches, and then I'm then trying to force the next door open and get up a staircase and all the rest of it. Old building, no lifts. When I get up there, it's a massive, big Georgian sort of room, high ceilings, pillar box red room. And I remember sitting in there thinking, are they trying to piss me off? And it was just little things like that, the colour. And I don't know if it was just me in my mind at the time. I just look around and think, they're really trying to piss me off. It's like, why are they late? You know, handed me a form to fill in. And then give me a pen that didn't work. And it was the little things that I'd just be like, I'm not doing that. And I was going through some CBT with one of the other mental health nurses there. And the one thing that sort of, I still to this day don't know what they were trying to get to. And I remember it was, I'd always been told that, yes, I'm allowed to have this amputation. You need to see the doctor. But I was still going from back and forth to appointments. And on this day, he said, close your eyes. So I closed my eyes. He said, think of your pain when it's been at its absolute worst, when it's been uncontrollable and there is nothing worse than it. So I was thinking about it and I opened my eyes. He went, close your eyes. Keep thinking. Close my eyes. It's gone on for a little while now, about a minute. I opened my eyes, and as soon as I opened my eyes, he went, close your eyes. And every time I close them, I'm thinking, okay. And he went, and he was talking very calmly and saying, think of your pain when it was at its absolute worst. Think of your pain when it hurt. Think of what you can't do. And it was all this sort of nice and calm, but think of this. By this point, it must have been about 5 minutes of opening my eyes and getting told to close them. And he went, 3, 2, 1, open your eyes. And as soon as I opened my eyes, he went, what colour's your pain? And I just went, what the fuck? Thought, what the fuck is this shit? And I it was this enraged moment where I was like, do you want me to put dark colours that are painful, pastel colour? And I turned the table upside down and walked out. I was like, I've had enough of this. And I never went back. And in my head, I thought, that's what they wanted. They wanted me to, this isn't sound mind. And I was like, damn. And I thought, because in my head, I'm fighting against a system that doesn't want me to do this. And I thought, this is what they wanted. They wanted a tick in the box to say he's not ready. And it's like, oh, what have I done? Wasn't that at all. Maybe it was just in my head. But I still went off to see the other doctor who literally said, we can book you in 2 weeks' time to have your amputation. So it was like, wow, let's get this done.
Sounds like that guy from Little Britain, doesn't it? Look at the eyes, look at the eyes.
It was just crazy. I remember just thinking, like, what is going on? Am I in some parallel universe?
I had not a similar experience, but I struggled massively with the talking to people part. And I can't remember if it was Hasler or Headley Court, but it took me forever to, I suppose it's like acceptance. It's different to yours, but I was angry and all the emotions and everything. But I remember one of the lines I got told was the pains in your head.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I understand now, I think I understand what they were getting at, but the point was the therapist who was talking to me, like just pretty much to a very angry, defensive kind of guy who was an ex-bootneck or, you know, about to lose your career, going, look, the pains in your head. That's how I heard it.
Yeah.
Rather than explaining it. And it just made me rage. Yeah, like it's almost like they're saying, we don't believe you, the pain's in your head.
Yeah, I was sent across to Derriford to see the pain nurse at the pain clinic. And when I walked into what looked like a hospital ward, and I was told, oh, it's down on the left-hand side. And when you go to hospital ward, you normally get, say, 3 or 4 large bay areas, and each bay will have 3 or 4 beds in them, or 4 or 5 beds in them. And it was like, oh, it's the one down on the very left, and it's the end bay. And as you walk down there, instead of it being 3 or 4 beds or sort of like a communal room, it was just one space, and that was the pain area. As I walked in there was tapestry on the walls, and there was like incense burning, and sort of I could see like little bells, and I just thought, what the fuck is this place? It's like, I thought this was a hospital. And she was like, hi, I'm the nurse practitioner. And I thought, well, I know what a nurse practitioner is, but it's the way she wasn't just the nurse, I'm the nurse practitioner. So for those who don't know, a nurse practitioner is a nurse who's got some doctor skills, and now that allows her to prescribe medications. So obviously, I'm the nurse practitioner. So every time I went there, and she'd always go, hi, I'm the nurse practitioner. It's like, what is wrong with her ego? And yeah, they said, have you tried paracetamol? Bear in mind, I was on doses of morphine that was making it so I could no longer drive. I like to describe it, I wasn't passing out at the wheel, I was waking up at the wheel. And as I was driving along, I'd just go, as if I'd been underwater. It was like, whoa. So, and it's an hour from Plymouth to Exeter, so it was like an hour's drive every day. And there I am driving along going, oh, Christ, hold on. But I felt like I'd been asleep for hours. One of the guys who I was car sharing with, he was like, I need to drive.
I'll be like that. You're not fucking driving, mate. Yeah.
He said, I was in the seat beside you. We were having a conversation, and literally you just out of nowhere went, I felt like I was asleep forever, sort of thing. And he was like, no. He said, literally, it was like a hiccup, but what the hell? So we got out, swapped sides. I mentioned this when I got back to work, and they were like, you're not driving anymore. And they was as good as gold. Literally, the MT department were like, we can supply you with a driver. He lives in your area. He works here. He'll pick you up on the way. He's now going to get a military vehicle, so he doesn't use his car. So he was happy with that. He would swing slightly out his way to pick me up and get me to work and take me back home again, no longer using his vehicle. It's like, happy days. Win-win for both of us. And, you know, the system was looking after me. So in a way, they done me a massive favour. I didn't die at the wheel, but everyone was happy.
I just want to make sure we don't brush over the fact that they've got a bloke who wants to chop his leg off, is on morphine, drinking whiskey, and they want to give you paracetamol.
Yeah, I know. It's just like, what the hell? But yeah, I went to most of these appointments on my own, and it was while we was on one of the leaves, let's say it was Easter leave or something like that. I had an appointment. I needed to get back up to Derriford. My wife drove me there. So my wife came into the appointment. I think it was one of the first times she'd been in there. And I'd already explained, this nurse is really annoying. And she tries to keep telling me, your pain's in your head. You don't have an ankle problem. It's a mind problem. If we can fix that, you won't feel your pain anymore. And I was like, I've got bone grinding on bone that's causing damage, and you're telling me that's not anywhere apart from in my head. So I remember really trying to have a go at me, and I'm sat there with my wife, and she said, right, we're going to start off by telling you, you are not in pain. And I looked at my wife, and she looked back at me, and she was going, really? And she went, you're not in pain. The pain's in your head. You need to get this to just stop and get on with, your career. You can do this. And I'm thinking, what the hell? And after that, it was just, I couldn't understand what she was saying. I was just, I'd switched off. At the end of the appointment, went home and I spoke to my wife, and sort of on the drive back, and she was saying she was definitely trying to get you to just have like an outburst, because there's like the thing she was saying was just like she was trying to wind you up. Yeah.
Spin me the deer. Is it true you were jumping off things trying to break your own ankle? Again.
No, it's been seen in two different ways, and I've heard this sort of where it's been spun and spun back to me. So I've had my ankle fused. That's the 11th operation. I've now got a shin that's with titanium screws screwed into the foot. So it's golf club, basically. It will not move. So you imagine if you get cramp in your calf, your foot curls over like a claw, and sort of like unbearable. If you were laid in bed beside a radiator, no matter how hot it was, you'd pull it off the wall. You're in that much pain. Well, my ankle's fused, and I'm getting calf pains that cause cramps in the foot that I have no way of, because you'd try and stretch your foot out, you'd roll up all over it, you'd try to relieve this, but I've got this metalwork that's, titanium's obviously stronger than bone, and if I've tried to move that at all, it's going to break it. But I had this uncontrollable, I have cramp that I can't move. It was like, so I remember being in between the parallel bars, and I was trying to lean into it, thinking, and the physio came over saying, you won't be able to move that ankle. I was like, I've got cramp. Give me a tennis ball. And I was rolling it under my foot. I was like, still got cramp. And I remember just thinking, like, just lean. I wasn't trying to break it as such. In my head, I was thinking, do you know, like when you crack your knuckles and it's like instant relief, release of nitrogen. Don't let people tell you it's not good for you, because it's a myth. But I just had this uncontrollable urge that something needed to just go pop. So it was like, right, that's it. It stopped. But yeah, a lot of people going, you look like you're trying to break something. It's like, oh, I've gone mad here. I'm in so much pain and I can't do nothing about it. Yeah, I didn't have the fusion for long. It was fused. I went up to the X-ray department for a checkup, and they said it's calcified amazing. At the time, and this was at the time, they said, if it was a football team, it would be the Manchester United of football teams. It's top of the league. It's the best fusion I've ever seen.
Definitely not Manchester.
But not Man U at the moment. So I literally went, okay, it just must be me then. Every day when I wake up, I stand on the floor. When I release my foot, I get an electric shock as if it's fractured. And by the end of the day, it's a great big cankle where it's all inflamed. To me, it's fractured, but, something's not going right. And this was months after the fusion. It would wake up in the morning, it was all slim looking, but it hurt. And towards the end of the day, it was all inflamed again. Tried everything I could with heat treatment, ice treatment, trying to do my different recovery, rehab. And it got to the point where I was in so much pain. I went back to the doctor, and there was quite a few breaking points where I think, again, I was just in pain, angry, pissed off, upset with everything. And I remember I booked in with a reception to see the doctor. My doctor was off, so I was seeing another doctor. They knew of me. And literally as soon as the door opened, he was already writing a prescription and said, I've got you some more pain relief. It's like, I'm in here to talk about my ankle. I want to talk about, I don't think it's right. And he literally went, yeah. And he's waving this prescription, which I'm not taking off him. I'm just like arms down, thinking I'm not having that. And he's like trying to hand it to me. It was kind of like as he's leaned round on his chair. I remember just looking, thinking, I am not getting the right treatment here. So I took myself off to A&E and I said, I need an x-ray. They explained what had happened. I'd had surgery and I said, it doesn't look right. They x-rayed it in A&E and there was a couple of small fractures to each side of the ankle where it had been previously fused. Had a specialist come in. When they spoke to me, they said, we'll send you in for a CT scan. And I sort of went, how long is that going to take? And he went, I'll wheel you down there now. And I was like, oh. Had the CT scan and he went, right, the reason why it hurts like a fracture, on the outside of your bone, it's all nicely started to heal. And a couple of little pinpoints in between, if you think of the 3D sort of shape of the bone. And he said, everywhere in between, it hasn't. He said, you've got these couple of little columns that are just starting to heal, but everywhere on the outside has. He said, every time you move, they break, probably feel like a fracture. And he said, they cause instability and the edges are starting to crumble again. He said, you're probably in a lot of pain and it feels like a fracture. And I was like, hallelujah, that's what I keep telling everybody. And nobody will believe me. You know, this actually hurts like, you know, all the time. So he said, you've got one of two things that you can do from here. He said, you can either have it done again or you can have an amputated, please. And that's when he said, I need to speak to your specialist, because he was, say, duty specialist on the day or duty consultant. It was like, need to speak to him. But my recommendation is, if this isn't going to be fused again, you need to have an amputation. That's what I keep saying. So that was put forwards. But yeah.
Mate, it's a remarkable story, that. It really is.
I felt like it was just a non-stop.
Yeah.
You're in pain. And I guess when someone says I'm in pain all the time, it's like, do you believe them? Or you just go, oh, really? But even looking back now, it was just hell of like 6 years of constant pain.
You've heard me speak on other podcasts.
Putting all that weight on.
Yeah, about what it does to you mentally and physically.
Yeah.
Of course, we can't compare notes. I've said on that podcast that I went, I got a bad ankle, but it was relative to me. It was subjective to me. It took everything away from me. And
I describe mine as a twisted sock.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the mechanism of how it happened. So mine's a twisted sock injury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had it off, and here you are now. And then, like we spoke about at the beginning of the podcast, you are an inspiration, a picture of health. I see you're in good nick at the moment, right? I've seen you off. Yeah, smashing the fizz in. Where are you in terms of like breaking records and whatnot now?
I put that to bed. I like to say that I'm retired from rowing and skiing. I had a few years of pushing every single time and distance that I could. They were all there. I used to bunch them together where I'd see sort of sprints, middle distance and long distance. I'd train for certain ones. And in, say, a 6 month period, I'd try and pick off as many of the records as I could, whether it's I was never that good at the sprints on the rower, to be honest. It was more the skier, but the middle distance and the long distance on the rower, that's where I'd sort of pick. And I think the first record I did was the 5K. And I remember I think I was less than 10 seconds off the record, and I was a few days away from going on a 2-week holiday to Florida with the kids. And I was like, I've just missed out unless I do it tomorrow or the day after. And I remember thinking I could give myself a day's rest and then go again and go at exactly the same pace and just push more at the end. And that's exactly what I did. So for my first way of saying I'm near this was just do the same again and push more at the end. And I got to the end, and I can't remember the exact times at the moment, but many times over beat that one. But that was my first one, the 5K.
So from having your leg amputated now, like obviously from the story you've just told and the anger and the emotion involved in such a long period of time whilst being a husband and a father, life-changing.
Oh yeah. I mean, compared to where I was then, angry and everything, my wife, on the day I had the amputation, she come in to see me. I'm there sat up in a bed with this massive inflamed sort of bandaged up leg, but a great big smile on my face.
I've seen the picture. You repost it every year.
I was no longer in pain. And for the first time in probably about, it must be sort of somewhere between 6 and 7 years by then, it was like I truly had no pain.
Yeah.
And I know I was probably still on sort of pain relief I had an epidural and had a morphine sort of going through, but it was like, there's nothing. And you'll probably find with pain relief, it only ever sort of masks it slightly. You still feel it. It's just not as bad. But yeah, this time it was kind of like, this is great. It was like, wow. And I didn't care. They tried to warn me beforehand, say, when you wake up, you'll see there's not a leg there. You might get all emotional and you might feel weird about it. And it was just like, it's dead to me. I'm not bothered about that. It held me back. And I just remember looking and thinking, I'm not in pain anymore.
Yeah.
Right. What can I do now? And they're like, you need to sit down in bed for at least 3 weeks, leg up and do nothing. And I was like, I can do this. And they're saying things like, oh, we'll bring like a commode to the side of the bed, and we'll bring like a bedpan so you can use it. And I was like, I've been on crutches for years. I can get across to the toilet. I've many times had a cast on a leg and I've been hopping on one leg. This one's good. And they were like, no, as soon as you go down and any blood flow goes towards that wound, you'll know about it, sort of thing. And I was like, okay. I remember the first time I went to get out of bed to just sit on the commode. And as I got out of bed, it was like the pain from all the blood going down. And it was like, maybe they're right. Like, oh my goodness. Let's get back in the bed with my leg raised. And it's like 3 days later, I'm out of hospital and I'm back at home, but I'm still on bed rest. But yeah, I saw that as, I got in touch with Headley Court and having contacts, being a medic, I got in touch with Headley Court and said, how soon can I come to you as a patient? They went, when you, like the scabs on your wounds have healed? I went, right. So if I come to you early, what happens? I went, you probably won't be able to do much, but we'll find something for you to do. Right, book me in the 6 weeks. They're like, when did you have your amputation? I was like, book me in. And I went up there 6 weeks after the amputation for my first stint of a 6 weeks sort of in-house sort of, what do they call it? I don't want to say deployment there, but draft, yeah. I mean, just stay there. I mean, it is your job. It's everything, isn't it? And I was just excited to go. Let's get this done. I mean, I'd been to Headley Court beforehand. When they decided I was having the amputation, they sent me up there to get measured up. It was my surgeon who'd sent me up there. He'd only ever done one amputation before. No one's a specialist. That's not what people specialise in, cutting things off. It's just they can all do it. And I knew he'd done one before, and it was another guy at Hasler, and he cocked it up. So I thought, that's the guy who's doing mine. And my theory behind that was, they're going to make the same mistake again. I knew what mistake he made. He cut it too low. So he had too much leg. And then after there was lots of healing gone on, he then had to start it all again and cut again. So then what he was trying to do was save as much of the limb as he could, but that would leave him with a prosthetic that looked like a welly. So it was a rubber foot on a sock instead of metal poles, carbon sockets, and, it wouldn't be stable. And he was like, yeah, get the rest of that leg off, so it's still below the knee. So when that happened to a mate of mine, it's no longer with us, bless him, he told me all about it, and you can never trust this guy. I knew that's the guy I wanted, so he sent me up to Headley Court to get measured. This is optimum sort of how much space between all of the components that we need from a foot and all the components that make up the ankle to then this is how much room you could have left. So when I had the amputation, it's like I've got quite a long stump because it just worked perfectly. And I think that's why I personally think I walk quite natural. I get on and do most things. Yes, now I do admit that I am disabled, but that took about 4 years to admit that. Beforehand, I've got a wheelchair in the house, and for 4 years I didn't use it. I'd crawl around, I'd bum shuffle on the floor. I'd do everything I could because I'm not admitting defeat and getting in that. Turning point on that was we went to Orlando with the kids. First time I'd ever taken it with me. I thought, what if something goes wrong? Take it with me. I'd heard of other people going on flights and the stump swells and then you can't get it back in your carbon socket. So I thought, just in case, take the chair, but I'll probably never use it. And as soon as I got to the other end, so you're ready to get off the flight, I went to put the leg on, and it's as if it was 2 sizes too big to let my stump for fit in the socket. So I come off the plane and got straight on, on crutches, got straight into the chair. And for the whole 2 weeks, I was never out of the chair. And it was kind of like, this is easy. And in Disneyland or Disney World in Florida, all the queues are really wide because you've got lots of large people out there. And to stop them kind of where it used to be, oh, if I get in a mobility scooter, I can queue jump. They sort of, we have bigger queues, you can all get around it now. So it was kind of like, this is perfect. So I went round with the kids, didn't have to go through some back entrance. Everything was great. Went on as much as I could. Had a couple of times had to get like strapped in as if I was going to jump out of a plane. It was like harnesses and everything in case I was like, I've still got legs. So, but yeah, they're harnessing me into these rides. And it was like, oh, you can have 2 or 3 goes because it'll take longer to get you out. I was like, wow. So yeah, just had a great time. And when I come back, every evening, I'd get back in the chair and I'd give my stump a rest, I'd give the leg a rest. I've had it pretty easy as an amputee where I get on and do things. If I bend the knee, the foot follows. If I do things, I can run, I can jump, I can bend down. There's not a lot that I can't do. And it's little things like if I go to kneel down, because the foot's at a right angle, it'll be up in the air. So then your hips are at the wrong angle because your other foot, you'll be sort of plant flecting. So yeah, everything's slightly off if you're kneeling down. So I'll sit. If you go to squat, instead of rocking with your ankle movement and your knee bending at the same time, mine knee bends and then I go on to like a toe movement. So you have to adapt, and you find these little adaptations that you can do. On the whole, I just get on and do as much as I can. Most of the time, I'll find a new way of doing it or just put up with it.
Well, Ray, that was an epic story because I've never heard that. I just knew you, and I knew that you'd had it because of an ankle injury, but it's remarkable, and it shows also how strong you can be from the example you've given to what you do now in setting world records on the rowing machine and the ski erg, and obviously being a father that you are and doing all your things.
I was addicted to pain. That's all it was. And as you know, from the rower, it's just a pain game.
Yeah.
How much can you push your limits?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what I used to tell everybody, because I used to say, how are you doing this?
Yeah.
And it's like, because I'm comfortable in the uncomfortable zones. And yeah, I don't like that now because I haven't rowed for so long. I don't know if I've seen Mark myself, so I know how much of a wizard he is. Whenever I get on the rower now, my back hurts. I ski erg most days, and I do it for 20 minutes, just arms only. And I just do it as a warm up on just arms only. It gets the heart and lungs going. If I try to squat, because like I say, with my toe movement, odd squat, it's a bit weird and pointless, and it's going to cause some other problems.
You adapt and overcome.
Yeah, so I'm stood there as straight as I can, arms only, sort of ski erging, thinking to get your heart and lungs going, and it does a lot for your arms. But yeah, rowing wise, I've kind of given it up. I did have a little tiptoe into doing some assault course. I saw you at the NEC recently.
Yeah.
I wasn't in a good way when I saw you.
Right.
I don't know if you noticed at the time, but my back had spasmed. First time I ever done one of these assault courses. I train all the time, 5 times a week. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm fitting well, and I can do this. A lot of pull-ups. I can hold my own body weight on rings and everything. So I thought, let's give it a go. And I was the 3rd fastest time in my category on the day. That put me into the finals for the next day, which I didn't realize it was a two-day event. So I was like, I can't play. You give it to someone else. And when I sat around watching everyone else, it was just suddenly, back spasm, and I couldn't move. I laid in the recovery area where I had like some warm-up area, and I just laid there for hours. Every time I tried to move, I was halfway in between getting up and getting back down again. It's like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. And I was like a 3-hour drive from home. I just kept thinking, just see how things go. I eventually got moving, and there were some physios and where you could pay to have some physio treatment. Did that. Nothing really helped it. And I remember getting all my stuff together, and I was sort of slowly walking past, and I was like, hi, Ollie. And I remember thinking, can't stop. Yeah, I was in agony. It was awful.
Good stuff, mate. Listen, I've enjoyed listening to your story. Thank you very much for sharing. Like I said, you're genuine inspiration, and I hope people that watch that find that inspirational, because I certainly did, mate.
Thank you.
Nice one, mate.
Thank you.